Welcome to the world of science fiction stories, and don't forget to share and subscribe the channel. The Unexpected Partnership. Dominic Foster squinted at the holographic display floating above his desk in the cramped research station on Proxima B. The ancient artifact rotating before him, covered in intricate patterns, had consumed his attention for the past 3 months. As Earth's leading xenoanthropologist, he thought he'd seen everything, but these markings defied conventional translation matrices. A soft chime interrupted his concentration. "Dr. Foster, the Lion delegation has arrived," announced the station's AI. Dominic straightened his worn academic robes, a holdover from his university days that he insisted on wearing even on this remote outpost. The Lions were notoriously formal, and first impressions mattered. The delegation that entered his lab took his breath away. The Lions, with their iridescent scaled skin and graceful movements, made human attempts at ceremony look clumsy by comparison. Their leader, Ambassador Nuravelin, stepped forward. Her scales shifted from deep azure to violet as she moved into the light. "Dr. Foster," she spoke, her translator converting the melodic tones of her native language. "Your research into our ancient histories has caught the attention of the High Council. We have a proposal." Dominic gestured to the artifact floating above his desk. "I assume this relates to the archival sphere your people provided for study." The patterns on its surface pulsed gently, as if responding to their presence. "Indeed," Naira's eyes, with their distinctive double pupils, focused on the sphere. "We believe you've discovered something our own scholars missed. Something that changes everything we thought we knew about our species' origins." The ambassador produced a small crystal tablet, its surface shimmering with legal text. "We propose a formal cultural exchange. Your unique perspective, combined with our historical records, could unlock mysteries both our peoples have sought to understand for centuries." Dominic skimmed the document, his excitement about potential discoveries overshadowing his usual caution with legal matters. The terms seemed straightforward. He would gain unprecedented access to Lion historical archives in exchange for sharing his research methodologies. "Your signature here," Naira indicated, "will formalize the arrangement." Dominic pressed his thumb to the crystal surface, watching as his DNA signature merged with the document. The ambassador's scales rippled with what Dominic would later learn was amusement. "Excellent. Welcome, Dr. Foster, to the first true meeting of our civilizations. Though I should mention, there are some additional clauses about cultural integration that we'll need to discuss." It wasn't until later that evening, reviewing the full contract, that Dominic realized what he'd agreed to. The cultural exchange wasn't just about research. He was now legally bound to participate in traditional Lion ceremonies, including their sacred knowledge-sharing rituals. These rituals, it turned out, involved a deep mental connection that no human had ever experienced. The next morning, as Dominic prepared for his first ritual, he found himself both terrified and thrilled. The contract he'd signed so casually was about to take him on a journey far beyond the realm of academic research. As he watched Nara arrange the ceremonial crystals in his lab, he realized that his life's work studying alien cultures was about to become far more personal than he'd ever imagined. "Are you ready to begin?" Naira asked, her scales now glowing with a warm, reassuring golden hue. "Remember, once we start the knowledge-sharing ritual, there's no turning back. Your mind and ours will be forever connected." Dominic took a deep breath, looking at the ancient artifact that had started this whole adventure. "I've spent my life trying to understand other cultures," he said, managing a smile. "I suppose it's time to truly experience one." As the crystals began to hum with energy, Dominic realized that what he thought was a simple research agreement was about to transform not just his understanding of the Lions, but the very nature of human-alien relations. The patterns on the archival sphere began to pulse in sync with the crystals, and Dominic Foster, xenoanthropologist and accidental pioneer, stepped into a new chapter of both human and Lion history. Part 2. The knowledge-sharing ritual left Dominic Foster feeling like his mind had been turned inside out and reassembled by alien hands. In many ways, it had. The neural link with the lions had filled his consciousness with fragments of their history, culture, and collective memory, all of it swirling in a kaleidoscope of information he was still struggling to process. "The disorientation will pass," Naira assured him, her scales shifting to a soothing green pattern. She sat across from him in the meditation chamber where they'd spent the past 6 hours connected through the ceremonial crystals. "Your mind is remarkably adaptable for a human." Dominic massaged his temples, trying to sort through the flood of new memories. "I see things, places I've never been, a city of crystal spires under triple moons." He paused, focusing on a particularly vivid image. "A great migration through the stars." Naira's scales flickered with approval. "The journey of the 17 ships, our exodus from the home world, I'm impressed. Most initiates take days to access such deep ancestral memories." But something else nagged at Dominic's consciousness. Among the lion memories, he glimpsed something that shouldn't have been there: ancient Earth structures viewed through alien eyes. "Naira, why do your people have memories of pyramids?" The ambassador's scales shifted to a deep indigo, a color Dominic now recognized as concern. "That, Dr. Foster, is precisely why we sought this connection. Our histories are more intertwined than either of our species realized." The archival sphere, still floating in its containment field in the lab, seemed to pulse more intensely as they discussed this revelation. Dominic approached it, seeing its patterns with new understanding. The symbols weren't just decorative. They were a map of sorts, charting interactions between their species that predated recorded human history. "We need to proceed carefully," Naira warned, joining him at the sphere. "This knowledge could destabilize both our societies if not handled properly. There are those among both humans and lions who would resist the idea of our ancient connection." As if to emphasize her point, Dominic's communication panel lit up with urgent messages. Word of the knowledge-sharing ritual had leaked, and Earth's Scientific Council was demanding immediate explanations. How had he authorized such an unprecedented neural connection without proper oversight? What classified information might have been compromised? "I should have warned you," Naira said, her tone apologetic. "The ritual creates a permanent change in brain chemistry. Your neural patterns now carry traces of lion structure. Some would consider this a breach of human genetic sovereignty." Dominic laughed despite the gravity of the situation. "A breach I voluntarily signed up for. This contract was clear about the ritual's effects." He paused, remembering how quickly he'd skimmed those terms. "Well, mostly clear." "The contract," Naira reminded him, her scales shimmering with what he now recognized as amusement, "also obligates you to participate in 6 more traditional ceremonies. Each one will deepen the connection and unlock more shared memories." The next few days became a blur of diplomatic meetings and medical examinations. Earth authorities were simultaneously fascinated by and terrified of the changes in Dominic's brain. The Lion High Council sent additional delegates to observe his transformation, and through it all, the archival sphere's patterns grew increasingly complex, responding to his evolving neural state. During one particularly heated debate about the implications of human-lion neural bonding, Dominic discovered another side effect of the ritual. He could sense Naira's emotions from across the room, picking up waves of frustration as she argued with conservative members of her council. "This was always meant to happen," she told him later as they prepared for the second ceremony. "The sphere chose you, Dominic. Its patterns matched your neural architecture perfectly. Out of all the humans we studied, you were the only one capable of surviving complete integration with our collective memory." Dominic stared at his reflection in a polished crystal wall. His eyes had developed a subtle iridescence reminiscent of lion scales. "And what happens when the integration is complete? What do I become?" Naira's scales shifted through a complex pattern he hadn't seen before, uncertainty mixed with hope. "That's the fascinating part," she admitted. "We don't know. This level of human-lion synthesis has never been achieved. You're walking a path that will reshape both our species' understanding of consciousness itself." As they prepared for the next ritual, Dominic could feel the weight of history pressing down on them. The contract he'd signed so casually was forcing both species to confront a truth buried millennia ago. And somewhere in the depths of his newly expanded consciousness, ancient memories were stirring, memories that would either bridge their two worlds or tear them apart. Part 3. The third ritual changed everything. As the ceremonial crystals hummed with energy, Dominic Foster's consciousness expanded beyond anything he had previously experienced. The fragmentary memories from earlier ceremonies suddenly aligned like constellation points, forming a clear picture, one that shook the foundations of both human and lion history. Stop the ritual? Naira's scales flashed alarming patterns of red and white, but it was too late. The neural connection had already solidified, and the truth buried in their shared ancestral memories burst forth with devastating clarity. The archival sphere pulsed with unprecedented intensity, its patterns now perfectly matching the rhythm of Dominic's transformed brain waves. Through the haze of merged consciousness, he finally understood its true purpose. "It's not just a record," he gasped. "It's a key." The sphere projected a holographic star map that filled the chamber, but unlike modern stellar cartography, this map showed the galaxy as it had existed 50,000 years ago. Dozens of worlds pulsed with light, ancient colonies of a civilization that had preceded both humans and lions. "The precursors," Naira whispered, her scales shifting through colors Dominic had never seen before. "Not just myths after all." The shared memory crystallized in their linked minds. A highly advanced species had seeded both Earth and Lyria with modified versions of their own genetic code. Humans and lions weren't just cosmic neighbors. They were artificial cousins, created by the same ancient gardeners for purposes now lost to time. "This explains the compatibility of our neural patterns," Dominic said, watching new data streams flow from the sphere. "We were designed to be complementary. The potential for connection was built into our DNA from the start." But the revelation carried darker implications. The precursors hadn't vanished naturally. They'd fled from something. The shared memories showed glimpses of a threat so profound that it had forced them to abandon their galaxy-spanning civilization and scatter their children among the stars. "Look at these genetic markers." Dominic pointed to complex sequences flowing through the holographic display. "They didn't just modify our ancestors. They embedded dormant capabilities in our DNA, capabilities that would only activate when our species made contact." Naira's scientific training warred with her diplomatic caution. "If we reveal this, it will upend everything: religious institutions, origin theories, the very foundation of both our society's self-image." "We don't have a choice," Dominic argued, his iridescent eyes now almost indistinguishable from lion ones. "The genetic programs are activating whether we acknowledge them or not. Every human-lion neural connection triggers more changes." He could feel it in his own body, subtle transformations that went far beyond simple neural adaptation. His skin had developed a faint scale-like sheen in certain lights. His mental processes had begun operating on multiple levels simultaneously, more like the lion distributed consciousness than traditional human linear thinking. The research station sensors registered a spike in unusual energy readings. The archival sphere's pulsing had synchronized with orbiting satellites, creating a cascading effect through all their connected systems. More concerning were the reports coming in from other human-lion contact points across known space. Similar phenomena were occurring wherever their species interacted. "The dormant protocols are spreading," Naira observed, her scales now mimicking the sphere's patterns. "Every piece of precursor technology in our possession is activating. They left us more than just modified genes. They left us tools waiting for the right moment." Dominic accessed the station's long-range scanners, his enhanced consciousness interfacing directly with the systems. "Something's coming. The genetic changes, the technology activating, it's all preparation. The precursors knew their ancient enemy would return, and they created us to face it." The implications hit him with stunning force. The contract he'd signed, thinking it was about cultural exchange, had actually triggered a cascade of pre-programmed events. Every ritual, every neural connection between humans and lions was awakening more of their hidden potential. "We need to inform both governments immediately," Naira said, already drafting emergency communications. The changes can't be stopped, but they can be managed if we understand them. Dominic smiled grimly, watching his reflection in a crystal panel. His transformation was accelerating, but he no longer feared it. Tell them everything. The time for secrets is over. Whatever's coming, humans and lions will face it together, just as we were designed to do. As if responding to his resolution, the archival sphere released a new burst of data. Ancient technical schematics, biological protocols, and tactical information began flooding their merged consciousness. The precursors had left them everything they would need, if they could learn to use it in time. The next ritual, Naira said softly, will be different. We're not just sharing memories anymore. We're awakening something that was hidden in both our species since the beginning. The sphere's pulsing took on an almost urgent rhythm, as if counting down to something only it could foresee. Whatever the precursors had feared, whatever had driven them to such extraordinary measures, its return was no longer a distant possibility. It was an imminent reality. Part 4. The first signs appeared in the outer rim colonies. Communication buoys went dark one by one, creating an expanding sphere of silence that crept toward populated space. Both human and lion military vessels dispatched to investigate failed to return. The ancient enemy that the precursors had fled was finally revealing itself. In the transformed research station, now humming with activated precursor technology, Dominic Foster and Naira Velen worked frantically to understand the flood of information pouring from the archival sphere. Their neural connection had grown so deep that they operated as a single consciousness, processing data at unprecedented speeds. They're called the Void Hunters, Dominic announced during an emergency joint session of Earth and Lion leadership. His appearance shocked many of the delegates. His transformation had accelerated, his skin now displaying the subtle pattern of iridescent scales, while Naira had taken on a more human-like texture. They don't invade spaces, they erase them, convert matter and energy into nothing. The precursors didn't flee out of fear, Naira continued, their thoughts flowing seamlessly together. They withdrew to create us, specialized variants of their species designed to perceive and combat the Void Hunters. But we needed time to evolve, to develop independently before we could be awakened to our true purpose. The station's holographic displays showed the enemy's advance. The Void Hunters appeared as tiers in spacetime, areas where natural laws simply ceased to function. Conventional weapons passed through them without effect, and any matter they touched simply vanished from existence. Separation was intentional, Dominic explained, accessing more of the unlocked genetic memory. Humans developed linear, innovative thinking, while lions evolved distributed consciousness and energy manipulation. Apart, we were incomplete. Together, he gestured, and the station's precursor systems responded instantly, creating complex energy patterns that mirrored neural pathways. Reports flooded in from across known space. Wherever humans and lions had begun connecting through the ritual, extraordinary capabilities were manifesting. The dormant genetic programs were activating faster now, driven by the approaching threat. The fourth ritual can't wait, Naira insisted, her scales pulsing with urgency. We need to complete the transformation. The knowledge is there, buried in our combined genetic memory, but we can't access it fully until the merger is complete. Military leaders from both species objected, citing concerns about losing their last untransformed specialists. But as another colony went dark, their options dwindled. The Void Hunters were moving faster than anyone had anticipated, as if drawn to the awakening precursor technologies. In the ritual chamber, surrounded by humming crystals and floating holographic displays, Dominic and Naira prepared for their deepest connection yet. The archival sphere had transformed as well, its surface now flowing like liquid metal as it responded to their evolved consciousness. Whatever we become, Dominic said softly, taking Naira's hand, we face it together. Their physical changes were impossible to ignore now, both of them shifting between human and lion characteristics, as their DNA rewrote itself according to ancient plans. The ritual began differently this time. Instead of a gradual merger of minds, they experienced a complete dissolution of barriers. Dominic's consciousness expanded into Naira's, and hers into his, until it was impossible to tell where one ended and the other began. In that moment of perfect unity, the final locks in their genetic code broke open. Knowledge flooded their shared mind: how to perceive the quantum structure of spacetime, how to generate fields that could contain and neutralize the void hunters, how to awaken these abilities in others of their species. The precursors hadn't just created advanced children, they had designed the ultimate weapon against entropy itself. As their consciousness stabilized in its new form, they became aware of other merged pairs across known space, all awakening to the same revelations. The archival sphere now projected a tactical display of the entire galaxy, showing chains of human-lion connections lighting up like neural pathways in a vast brain. "We understand now," they spoke in unison to the waiting officials, their voice carrying harmonic overtones that made the precursor technology sing in response. Why the contract had to be signed willingly, why the connection couldn't be forced. The power to fight the void hunters comes from the voluntary merger of our complementary natures. The tactical displays showed the enemy's advance slowing, then stopping, as the first merged pairs engaged them in battle. The void hunters, for the first time in their ancient existence, encountered something they couldn't simply erase: beings who existed simultaneously in multiple states of consciousness, whose very nature defied their power to negate reality. But even as they celebrated this first victory, Dominic and Naira's merged consciousness detected a deeper pattern in the precursor data. The awakening of their species' true potential had only begun. The contract that had started as a simple cultural exchange was revealing itself as part of a vast design, one that would ultimately transform not just their two species, but the very nature of life in the galaxy. Part 5. 1 year after the first Void Hunter contact, the galaxy had transformed beyond recognition. The research station where it all began had evolved into the central nexus, a living structure of merged precursor technology and biological material that served as the headquarters for the new hybrid civilization emerging from the crisis. Dominic and Naira, their merged consciousness now permanently unified, stood before the archival sphere here in their private chamber. Their appearance had stabilized into something neither fully human nor entirely lion, a perfect synthesis that reflected their internal harmony. The sphere, once mysterious and inactive, now served as a direct conduit to the precursor database hidden in their combined genetic memory. "The last of the Void Hunters has been contained," they announced to the assembled council of merged pairs. The chamber's holographic displays showed the final battle, tiers in reality sealed by the combined power of human innovation and lion energy manipulation, wielded by beings who existed in multiple states simultaneously. But victory had come with profound changes. The simple contract that had started their journey had sparked an irreversible evolution across known space. Humans and lions who chose to undergo the merging rituals were transforming, accessing abilities that their ancestral designers had hidden within their DNA. Those who remained unmerged watched with a mixture of awe and trepidation as a new species emerged from the combination of their civilizations. "We've received the final data burst from the precursor archive," they continued, their dual-toned voice carrying harmonics that made the station's crystal architecture resonate. "The Void Hunters weren't our only test. They were the first of many challenges our designers foresaw. The galaxy is changing, becoming more complex, and we were created to shepherd life through these transformations." The merged council members, each displaying their own unique blend of human and lion characteristics, absorbed this revelation through their shared neural network. The precursors hadn't fled from the galaxy. They had evolved beyond it, leaving their children to protect and guide the younger species that would follow. In the station's nursery section, the first generation of naturally born hybrids was already showing abilities that surpassed their merged parents. These children, conceived by pairs who had completed all ritual stages, represented something entirely new in the galaxy's history. They were born with fully activated precursor genes, their consciousness naturally existing in multiple dimensions. "The contract," Dominic and Naira's merged mind reflected, watching their own child manipulate quantum fields as easily as a human child might stack blocks, was never just about cultural exchange or fighting an ancient enemy. It was about unlocking the next stage of cosmic evolution. They turned their attention to the newest arrivals at the station, representatives from other species who had discovered similar dormant programs in their own genetic codes. The precursors, it seemed, had seeded the galaxy with multiple pairs of complementary species, each designed to merge and evolve when the time was right. Your journey begins with a choice, they explained to the newcomers, remembering their own initial hesitation and eventual transformation. The contract must be signed willingly, the connection embraced fully. The power to evolve cannot be forced or coerced. It must grow from genuine understanding and acceptance. The archival sphere pulsed with new patterns, registering the potential connections forming between these newly discovered paired species. Each combination would unlock different abilities, different aspects of the precursor's vast design. The galaxy itself seemed to be awakening, responding to the emergence of these hybrid consciousnesses. In quiet moments, their merged mind sometimes reflected on the seemingly random chance that had brought them together. A bureaucratic mistake, a hastily signed contract, a curiosity about ancient artifacts. But the precursor memories suggested there was no such thing as chance in their design.